Hi, I'm Teresa Hairston. Welcome to Gospel Today TV, your source for information and inspiration. Today's show is off the chain.
When I look at Dr. Teresa Hairston's collection, here's a woman that has done monumental work. From the dirt and gravel roads of Twinsburg, Ohio, who would have imagined that she would become the founder of Gospel Today, a publication that would impact the lives of millions and raise the profile? She's telling us what's going on in music. She's also telling us what's going on with the other aspects of the church community.
My first experience was, wow, Teresa really did it.
Artists were proud to be in it. She made sure that all those top passes, she went to them. It led the gospel music to another level, because now there is something that we could read about.
If you think about what she did for the industry and how she raised the image in so many different innovative platforms that didn't even exist within the gospel music arena, that's somebody that's moving with purpose. She is the unstoppable game changer. That's Dr. Teresa Hairston.
You know, it takes a test to have a testimony.
Turn it up.
Look at this. I didn't even remember to have this.
Here we have this high capacity donor coming to campus, and she's coming to see how we're caring for her legacy. So of course we were extremely excited. Giddy, I guess may be the best word, but also a little nervous, you know, because we haven't had anybody on campus. We haven't had an in-person visitor since March 2020.
Look at his. Kirkland Franklin.
Bringing back memories.
It is so amazing. I mean, can y'all come to my garage? I need y'all to just come to my house.
It's decades of materials here, and I can understand literally how we got to this place. The details, the historical evolution, the character of gospel music and so forth. She's a wonderful example for who we are. I started to say welcome, but I should say welcome back.
Yes.
Because you actually have a long history with Indiana University.
I do.
It's just, you know, it's been almost 40 years since you've been back to this campus.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
What did you do 40 years ago?
You know, 40 years ago, just a long time. I was working on my master's degree at SIUE, Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville, and doing a thesis on gospel music and historical trends and musical trends in gospel music. And I came to IU to study, to prepare my thesis. I would get up early, like 3 a.m., and drive like 4.5 hours to get here. It's really a full circle moment, because when I came here, I found some things, and it helped me to write my thesis, but it was more the absence of materials that related to gospel music and its history that really spurred me to do Gospel Today and all the things that I did in gospel music, because I loved it, but I wanted to see, you know, scholarly works and just even things for the general public done. And so God allowed me to do that in my life.
Let's start at the beginning. A few months in young Teresa's life on this earth, her father passes away, leaving her mom to take care of her and her older brother Mark, who was just 18 months older than Teresa. According to Teresa's memoir, her mother was the first black woman to serve on the Twinsburg Township School Board, but she also worked at the nearby Chrysler stamping plant. More pertinent to Teresa's development was that her mom played piano.
I loved it, and I would look up to her like, wow, you know, my mommy is a singer and she plays the piano and she's a music person, and I just wanted to be like her. So, you know, at 4 years old, a little girl, I started pecking out, you know, these little melodies. It evolved where I'm playing for a church at 7 as the minister of music for the church.
From there, Teresa blossomed into a well-rounded musician and teacher, where during her first year in college, she started a gospel choir, got married during her senior year, taught music in public school, had 3 children, moved to Columbus, and got divorced all by the age of 29. It was in Columbus that the fire for publishing was lit.
Uh-oh, what you got?
Let me see. I have a, this is out of your collection. This is not gospel today. This is actually score.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, this is still, this is what? This is June 1990. You go back further than this.
Yes.
I recall the publication, and you were working with Bishop Andy C. Luter.
Yes.
And y'all did church newsletters.
I was going to always be a school teacher. That was what I was going to do in life. No publishing. I was like, what? Publishing? So I would start these little publications that nobody ever saw.
Really?
And it evolved into, okay, well, I think I like that. I like the artistic aspect of it. I like the writing aspect, the creative. And so I took my entertainment and my church and religion kind of interests, and I created that little publication called The Good Report.
The Good Report.
And it became a publication that kind of told the good news in Columbus, Ohio.
After developing The Good Report, the phone rang. Teresa received a surprise call from the famous Savoy Records on the East Coast.
The executive director, Milton Bigham, calls me and says, hey, Teresa, you want to come work at Savoy? I said, yes. And then I said, what's my job going to be? Well, you can do promotions. Oh, yes, I can do that. I had no clue. I came up with this thing called the Savoy Record, which I then put all of the information in. It was like a little jet-sized newsletter, sent it out to all these outlets, and immediately there was this groundswell where people started calling us. Everybody started loving it, but then the parent company of Savoy decided they would take it over and put it down in their division, Malaco. So I said, oh, okay. Went back to my boss a couple months later and said, hey, do you mind if I do some kind of newsletter for just the general public, not related to our company, but outside of the company? Oh, yeah, no problem. And I said, okay. And I started a 4-page newsletter with $300 investment called The Score.
Wait. This was your money. This wasn't Savoy's money.
You're right. So here's the thing. One of my artists was James Cleveland, Reverend James Cleveland. One night he calls the office, and everybody's gone except me. I answered the phone. I said, Reverend, and I'm like sweating, knees knocking, and I'm thinking, I got to tell him about what my idea is. So, Reverend, I want to do a publication, and okay, well, listen, whatever's good for gospel music and for GMWA is good. Yeah, go ahead.
The Reverend James Cleveland, I think we have to understand who he was. First of all, he is the founder of the quintessential organization, the Gospel Music Workshop of America. This is James Cleveland, the one that used to play with the Caravans, the great gospel group. He is the person that coached Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul. You know, her 1972 album, Amazing Grace. The James Cleveland that put his mouth, his word on the product of Dr. Teresa Hairston's magazine.
So then I told my boss, I'm like jumping it down, doing the happy dance. So I told my boss the next day. He says, okay, well, you need to go meet with his business manager. So he paid for half the ticket. I paid for half the ticket. And I went to Detroit. I could only stay a day because I couldn't afford a hotel.
Wow.
And so we go in there and we're eating this barbecue, and I said, Ed, I got this great idea. It's going to be a publication. It's going to help to make people aware of gospel music and GMWA and all this stuff, and everybody's going to love it. And I just need y'all to underwrite it. Ed stopped eating his sandwich. He was like, child, we'll support you as much as we can, but we ain't getting ready to give you no money.
No money?
Not none. I was like, what am I going to do? I have no money. Income tax comes in and I get like $500, almost $600, and I take $300 and invest in this idea. And I mean, it was just, it really was homemade looking and all of that, but people started paying attention.
Along with SCORE, Dr. Hairston developed Scoreboard, the trade magazine for the industry. With her investment, Teresa takes her one shot to bolster awareness of her fledgling magazine at the 1990 Gospel Music Workshop of America annual conference.
I decided, okay, I'm going for it. I'm going to make a lot of money because this was going to be one of the biggest GMWA conferences ever. I positioned myself with this magazine in the lobby, and I'm standing there and I'm ready to meet Reverend Cleveland when he comes and present him this that is fresh off the press. And he's going to love it. He's going to tell the whole convention, you need to subscribe. I just know I got it all planned. But to my chagrin, the limo drivers and all these people jump out of the limo and they pull Reverend Cleveland out. They call the doctors, it's a medical emergency. He never comes out of the room. He never comes to the convention. He never rebounds. A few months later, he dies. And so I just knew that I needed to quit after that.
But you never did.
I couldn't.
You don't quit. And then she's riding back home in the plane like, I was expecting to sell hundreds of these things. The letdown of the business requires huge faith. If you ain't making sales, you better have huge faith. If you stay in the game, if you stay there, if you can persevere, you'll begin to see manifestation of success.
What you say, what you say, what you say, what you say?
So I started SCORE as a music magazine. It was going to be the great magazine about gospel music. And I soon learned that gospel music was so pigeonholed in the world and in the music industry that I needed to move past that. So then I moved from music to music and ministry. And people were like, why are you putting that pastor on the cover? We don't want to hear about no pastors. You're wrong, because music and ministry go together like hand in glove.
One of the biggest challenges record companies had when I first started at Billboard was they weren't connecting with churches. You didn't have the platform you had for gospel record labels to go into to actually market in churches.
This is a magazine that gospel singers really need. We never got the exposure that other singers got.
It highlighted people like myself, so it highlighted people behind the scenes. You got to remember back then, there was no social networking or anything. That was what we had.
Teresa Hairston, the publisher, who has, with the help of the Lord, taken this magazine from a 8.5 by 17 fold to what it is today, is absolutely a testament to what perseverance and what diligence can do.
In 1994, SCORE and Scoreboard upgraded to new names respectively, Gospel Today and Gospel Industry Today, the magazines that would capture the attention of millions.
I began to see that lifestyle was way beyond music and ministry. People that don't go to church, people that don't even listen to gospel music. And so Gospel Today became the magazine of Christian lifestyle. And we started to talk about and talk to people in all walks of life.
One of my favorite articles is from the mailbox. It makes me feel closer to the pulse of what people are really thinking.
Gospel Today is a magazine that really doesn't have any limitations on it in terms of ages or in terms of denominations.
We love Gospel Today. It's for young people too. It's a good magazine. You should try it.
The Girls Magazine is so classy. She's always done gospel just right. Absolutely. Got it going on, Teresa.
And your host, MC Hammer.
People who were outside of even Christianity became interested in what this lifestyle delivered, which is what it's all about.
Finally, this is a book that's going to deal with gospel. All the people, all my buddies, all my friends, I can get a insight on what's going on with them, who's got a record coming, what's going on, how they live, what they do for fun, how they go to the movies, do they go to the gym, how they eat, their health.
That's why her magazine made you feel like when you read them, like they're human. She humanized the gospel music community. So when you come and see her collection, you get history, you understand evolution of the industry, of artists, and then you feel a sense of community.
For a better tomorrow.
You have got to read
Gospel Today. It's the best. You got to get it.
You made my day.
Certainly, Teresa was an architect in the industry, but she didn't build alone. There was a network of innovators who corralled each other. People like the founder of the famed gospel-centric records, Vicki and Billboard columnist Lisa Collins. Do you remember your first impression of Teresa Hairston?
Yeah, I was excited when I saw her because there weren't that many women in it. I kind of bonded with her, and we were mothers doing our thing. So I think I really bonded with her because of that. She's at Savoy, and we both had to give presentations for the companies that we were working for. And we just kind of clicked and bonded. And I think we've kind of been like that ever since. If she calls me and she needs something, I'm going to support it. And it's going to always be that way.
It was strange because when I got to Billboard magazine, I didn't know even who referred me. And I later found out it was Vicki. Vicki and I have known each other since college. So we kind of worked in tandem with each other. When I met Teresa, she was working with Milton Bigham at Savoy Records. And she was extremely helpful. So I met her on the phone. I would talk to her on the phone. What we visualized or what we conceptualized as what the industry could be, we helped to bring. If anyone could encapsulate the growth of gospel at that time, it was what Vicki was doing through Gospel Centric. What made me somewhat untouchable was the fact that I was at Billboard magazine. There's no bigger name in music than Billboard magazine. And Teresa had a magazine that was well read and well received. So I think that's what kind of put us in this stratosphere that we were a part of the gospel community, but what we did kind of set us apart from the gospel community.
Collectively, they would elevate the careers of luminaries while pushing boundaries from inside the industry. Wait a minute, that's Reverend Run from Run DMC. Wait a minute now.
Yes.
Run from, you knew him?
Yeah, I met him. So we were at an event in New York, and he was there, and his wife, and so, we got a chance to talk, and it was actually an event to honor Reverend Ike.
Really?
So, I just got a chance to meet all, so Run was there, and so I arranged to have an interview later with him, and he was very reticent to do it because he felt like, a lot of times, the church community is so judgmental, and I said, well, give me a chance.
Okay, wow, okay, so stop right there, because now you dealing, we dealing now. Okay, because you just said the church community, what Run said, the church community can be a little judgmental. Mm-hmm. We saw that from Thomas Dorsey, a former blues man, the father of gospel music, who,
yes,
brought the blues into the church. And they're like, what are you doing? Bringing this secular, Kurt with, 1997 with, Salt, from Salt and Pepper with Stomps.
Why did you want them to participate?
They wanted to participate because they have a love for God, and they wanted, I guess I was one of the few artists and Christians that don't shun them away. We are not going to win the world by being bigots and being racist to them. We're going to win them by our love, not to compromise our message.
Didn't Jesus, get criticized for, hanging out with the wine bibbers and all of the street folk? Well, aren't we supposed to be following in that pattern? So I think we are supposed to be outside of it. And so if Kanye's money and fame can help elevate good messages, if Snoop can do the same, and people can live more positive lives because now they see somebody they can relate to, I ain't mad about it.
Somebody I think who is also doing that really well in terms of bridging that gap between the church and the community, the broader, reach beyond the four walls, Bishop Hezekiah Walker. Tell us about Hezekiah, because they call him the hip hop pastor.
Yes.
It's the beat to the beat to the J-A-Y and Hezekiah.
Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Hezekiah Walker, and I want to see you at the Gospel Heritage Praise and Worship Conference.
When I first met Dr. Teresa Hairston, we had an invitation to come sing at the church that she actually played for. And I'll never forget that Sunday, she was on that organ killing it. And I was like so amazed at that. So we started vibing about her playing and her, being the minister of music at the church at the time. And then it kind of went from there.
What was it like to have her as executive producer of your project?
It's not often that you have someone to sign you to the label. Not only do they believe in you, but they make sure that your dream come true. And I think that's the thing that made it so amazing to me, to have someone to not just put a record out, sit back and just wait for it to sell, but someone that can navigate your career.
Hezekiah was one of the few artists that I really enjoyed going to, just being a fan and going to his concerts. He works hard on the craft, but he works just as hard on the spirit of the craft. And it collides and collaborates in such a way that you can't anticipate it. It just evolved into one of the most dynamic and exciting presentations of gospel.
Remember this? Won't he make you?
I got a chance to sing behind Ray Charles, and some other people from the secular side started looking at gospel music, looking at choirs. I promise you, it was a direct result of her being at Benson. If I wouldn't have never started with Dr. Hairston, I don't know if I would be where I am right now.
When you begin to talk about how we met and how you found me in New York, and I had 50 young kids following behind me just singing in the streets, Teresa, it was when I think about those times, and I had no idea.
Wow.
And you took a chance. You took a chance and said, Hezekiah, there is something in you.
But I saw in you the stability, the holiness, the sincerity, the integrity, and the talent. And you never quit. And I know a lot of things happen in your life to make you quit, to make you want to throw in the towel and give up, but you never, ever quit.
You hear story after story after story of people talking about how she poured into them. I think this is just her character. This is who she is at the core. She is a giver.
95, you founded an organization.
Gospel Heritage. Yeah, Gospel Heritage Foundation. What I wanted to do was to found an organization that taught about the heritage of gospel, preserved the legacy, and perpetuated that legacy. The industry participants, they love to sing, they loved God. And their artistry was an extension of their love for God. Then you had this influx of young people who were talented and gifted, but they didn't really know about contracts, and they didn't know about publishing and rights and clearances and all that stuff. So a lot of people got taken advantage of. I wanted to make sure that those people became educated so that there would be more income opportunities, more wealth building in our communities.
Thank you, Teresa, for having an event that you call a heritage situation, and you truly keep the tradition of gospel music alive, that which we love so very much.
That was really good to see that ambition, to to have somebody that eager to want to do something with the music. And then it reflected on her faith, her belief in God. This is what we are all about. It's promoting gospel music because we're promoting Christianity, so to speak. You know, that's the first thing for me and for Teresa. And I have seen her work in that capacity.
There's a letter that I found from a 16-year-old young man.
Oh my goodness.
The reason for this letter is to inform whoever it may concern about a talent that is yet to be discovered. He's talking about himself.
Yeah.
He's trying to get you to listen to his product and to give him some advice. But the fact that this 16-year-old brother knows who to reach out to, he understands. He says, in this wonderful year of 2001, Jesus has revealed to me what I was called to do. I am burning to reveal this talent to whomever it may concern, and without a doubt, I know I'm going to be successful. Please take heed to this letter and help me with a record deal.
Okay, yeah.
I have strong determination in what I have been called to do.
It says to me that I've got to teach people to be hungry, to stay hungry. Young people got to stay hungry. And then it also means that you got to find people. For me to look at a Kanye or a Snoop or, you know, a Puffy and say, okay, what are you doing and why are you interested in this gospel space? I mean, Beyonce stood at the Grammys and sang Precious Lord, Amazing Grace or something. You know, it's like, you're singing gospel?
Yeah.
You know, I went down to the studio. Matthew, her dad, invited me down there and said, this is where Beyonce makes her records. Let's do something with gospel in here. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this is... Yeah. So there is this fascination, if you will, with this music that Aretha Franklin cut her teeth on. And so I'm going to be part of that future of telling that story and making those connections that young people that are at IU or in any of these institutions and strive to be a part of the academy or the industry or anything else, they need to know that gospel has a bigger voice than it's ever been given in history.
This is a letter thanking the director of Feed the Children. This is signed Ronald Reagan. This is like my favorite collection. It's kind of like my baby because I've been working on it for so long. And it's just amazing how well documented these people's day-to-day lives are. Some of these folders will have upwards of 200 or 300 photographs that I go through. I am so thankful for my time here. Gospel of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s is not something I ever thought that I would have any kind of expertise in or necessarily knowledge of, but I think it's important to branch out because I never would have, in my regular studies as a folklore major, I wouldn't have really stumbled upon that very much.
But something happens to gospel music when it becomes positioned into an industry context. And this is what you were dealing with and the fight that you had in terms of, shall we call it, black in the industry, black gospel in the industry. There are connotations to that.
I think that what we have to understand is that gospel music goes back and you trace the origins of any music. We see it from Africa, we see it from the dominance of rhythm, the drum. When the industry embraced gospel music, and as the GMA decides that what we need to do is be the umbrella for all Christian music. Well, what is gospel?
We got a letter, and the letter was from the Gospel Music Association, and they were requesting that the charts be changed to Black gospel. To Billboard's credit, they said, Lisa, what do you think about this? I said, I cannot continue on at Billboard if you do this. It's not right. And they were like, we're going to stick with you then.
I was personally involved in the fight because I was on the GMA board. So when I got to Nashville and I'm part of the industry, they're telling me, this is Black gospel. And I said, why? But I never knew a music that was treated or called by the color of the people who sang it. And well, does that mean that white people can't sing gospel? What about a lot of these other artists that are gifted and great, but aren't Black, who love gospel?
there was just a preconception that gospel could only sell this amount. And so we're only going to put this amount of money in it. I mean, sometimes I remember as I was working, they would tell me, this is when I was at Light Records, to turn that music down, turn that hollering music down. And I'm like, this is the music we're promoting, people. Why would I turn it down? It is crazy. This was not their music, so to speak, in general. Now, everybody wasn't that way for sure.
And I said, we're getting ready to print the Dove Award ballads. Let's take the black off of gospel. They said, well, can you get a contingent of black labels and gospel labels to come together and say that this is what they want? I said, yes, I can. So I came back to the next meeting with this whole list of people who stood with me, take the black off of gospel.
That sparked a whole little protest.
We were speaking our mind and doing our thing, but people were trying to get us fired. Lisa Collins, Teresa, and myself. They wanted us out. And so I remember we had some meetings about that, and some black men like Ed Smith, the late Ed Smith, the late Al Hobbs, these black men were kind of saying, no, you're not going to do this. You're going to leave them alone and you're going to let them do their thing. So I think we felt empowered.
The entrepreneurial spirit of Teresa Hairston, the publisher, the fact that she is a woman, the fact that she is an African-American woman, I think ought to be an exemplary statement to all women of color everywhere that things can be done if you are willing to put together the pieces to go after that dream and put the Lord in first and pursue it.
I think there's always a little bit more hesitancy to attack men. The same gentleman that owned the GMA was starting a publication, and we felt that publication might put Teresa out of business. So I remember making a call to Marvin Winans. This publication is going to really work to put Teresa out of business. They're saying that they have you as the cover story in their first issue. And then a couple of days later, I remember getting a call from Marvin, and he said, Lisa, hold on a minute. I have John Still of the Gospel Music Association on the line. And I said, oh, Lord. He got back, he said, Mr. Still, I just want you to know that the Winans will not be on your cover, and no Winans will be part of this magazine at all. And that was that.
Lisa's story represents the racialized polarization within the Christian music community in the 1990s. These sentiments were overtly expressed in publications like Billboard magazine. In speaking of the relationship between GMA and black artists, award-winning singer Marvin Winans stated, according to scripture, they're about as non-Christian as you can get. What upsets me is that they consider their music as Christian and our music as black Christian. But God is a spirit. There is no black or white. However, there is a definite plan to keep division there. However, newly elected GMA President John Steele of Nashville-based CCM Publications doesn't think so. There is certainly a faction of people who have problems, but communication is a two-way process, and we are as open as can be. Contemporary Christian music is generating a lot of dollars, so it gets a lot of attention. That's just a business reality. But the GMA has been trying really hard to provide balance. Still, we are the most well-rounded organization that exists in gospel music today, representing everything from heavy metal to Southern gospel. It's not possible to give everyone an equal slice of the same pie. And just think, Teresa was in the middle of all of this.
We couldn't get our songs on their charts. We couldn't get our artists in their venues. It was a total systemic issue. What happened was there was more of an interest in gospel that the industry called black gospel, because it was more palatable to the mainstream than Christian contemporary was.
And so Vicki, Lisa, Teresa, and others developed the United Gospel Industry Council, with Teresa serving in a strategic leadership role.
And so when we got those deals, all of a sudden you see records that used to sell 50 or 75,000, now selling 250 to 300,000 off the rip. Well, my thing was, no, we need equity. We need inclusiveness. And we should be at the tables where the decisions are made. We should be at the tables where the budgets are decided.
If you think the 1990s were bad, fast forward to 2008, where the battles continued.
This is the 2008. 2008 was a rough year.
Yes.
Women senior pastors on the front cover of Gospel Today.
Mm-hmm. October was recognized as Pastor's Appreciation Month. So I would do this call out, like May or June. Hey, if you love your pastor, send us something about him or her, and we'll, pick a bunch of them and put them in our September issue. So I would do that, and it was just amazing. It was one of our top-selling issues. This year, specifically, I decided I would do something on female pastors, not just women who were in co-leadership with husbands, but women who were actually the senior pastors, whether they were married or not.
The Southern Baptist Convention contends women in the pulpit defy Scripture.
These 5 female pastors who landed on the cover of Gospel Today is sparking another debate whether or not women should be in the pulpit.
You can serve God in any capacity as God made you. So if a woman wants to be a pastor, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Over 100 stores across the country decided not to put this magazine out, not to display it.
I was really shocked that they would put a magazine under the counter.
Like pornography.
Like it's pornography.
It's a shame. It's a crying shame. Why would they pull that from the shelf?
I have been so busy doing the work that I have stopped having the argument. Naive of me, perhaps. And I was in a pastoral ministry course. The instructor of the course said to me very early in the semester, now when I say pastor, I'll say he. And he said, because I don't believe in women in the pastoral ministry. And I quite frankly, very nicely said, I'm not here in this class, I'm not in seminary based on what you believe. I'm here because of what I believe.
This is the 21st century, come on. And we're still arguing over women being in leadership or qualified to be leaders in churches. We fought it and we fought it, but we really were up against a lot. And it was debilitating financially, it was debilitating as a woman. We have been ostracized, and we cannot be censored for the truth. This is the truth, and we must speak truth to power.
The proof is in the pudding, that God is using women to do incredible things.
I would hate to say this, but I'll say it, act like a woman, think like a man. You got to think business, you got to be focused, you got to come determined to get what you need to get and go in there with a plan on how to get it, and then be unafraid to be feminine and who you are as a woman, because being a woman is being strong. Being a woman is being resilient. Being a woman is being a creator. And being a woman is being beautiful. You can be who you are, and a real man will understand the toughness of beauty.
Here she is doing all this business and ongoing activism, while at the same time raising 3 kids as a single mom and struggling to balance it all.
There was a time when I was in this meeting, it was really stressful, and I was trying to negotiate a deal or something, and I pulled out my briefcase and I pulled like a notebook or something out, and a little tiny car fell out. And I guess it was one of my son's toys. Yeah. And it just reminded me that, this isn't the most important thing. Family is the thing that glues you to life. And I think it keeps you grounded. I can't do this and be responsible to these children and to my responsibility as a mother. And I just, I prayed and prayed and cried. And at the conclusion of that, I said, okay, I've got to figure this out. I think you get to those moments in life where there are, those crossroads that you come to, which way are you going to go? And you've got to decide who you are, whose you are, and then how that informs what you do next.
The industry sees her as negotiator. The kids know her as Mom. So let's think about this. When you're knee-deep in press kits, interviews, photos for the next Gospel Today issue, along with all the emergent political issues, you're not thinking about the logistics of preservation. You're preserving, but not in a formal sense. So it's significant that Dr. Melanie Burnham, the former director of AAAMC, invited Teresa to establish a collection in her name at AAAMC. It means a lot to have the Teresa Hairston collection at AAAMC, because that's a donor that, simply put, gets it.
The Alpha's been here for about 20 years, and it is a facility that is designed to house rare, fragile, valuable, and seldom used materials. We built this building to house print materials primarily, and we've expanded the type of materials that are here to museum collections, to time-based media collections of every description, textiles, artwork, all kinds of things are in this collection. If temperature and humidity spikes in any of those rooms by 0.5 degree or 0.5 percentage point, alarms go off. And our desire is to get the environment right back to that stable environment that needs to be so that we can preserve those collections that are in our care, and they'll be available for scholars and citizens and researchers for as long as possible. So.
It's winter in here.
Yeah, it does feel like winter, you're right.
It's preservation and perpetuation. So we preserve our heritage, we perpetuate our legacy. That's very important because we have a debt that we owe to our culture, to our people, to everything that came before us and everything that's coming after us, to lift up the highest in what we do and who we are. And that's what I've been trying to do through Gospel Today, through the television shows, through everything, through the relationships that I have, just to model that we can be successful in and of ourselves, but the greater success is to be a sustainer of culture.
It's so important to think about Black music as not just something that we listen to, but something that we live. Black music has been so crucial to our survival here as an African people, all across the diaspora, but particularly in thinking about the context of, AAAMC and us looking at African American music. It has been so crucial and vital to our survival here and our reclamation and our reconnection to ourselves as an African people.
We are extending upon the narrative of Black music. Her collection does that for us.
I was 7 months old when my father died. So I never knew him, and I never knew about him until I was almost 50 years old. The thing is, if I had never learned about his legacy, I would not know. From him came the fighter in me. I think one of the biggest things that I say to people is tell your story. Tell your story and tell all of it so the family reunion people can know it.
That's good.
And you might think it's minuscule or insignificant, but it really will change lives. It will change futures.
To have her as a donor, as a partner in preservation at AAAMC is priceless. Who is Dr. Teresa Hairston?
That's a lot, and it's a good lot. Dr. Hairston is a woman of class, a woman of business. She's one of the ones who have kept her integrity in place. And to me, that speaks volumes to me.
Oh Lord, we magnify.
Dr. Teresa Hairston uses her platform to support that energy as though God had told her, this is what you're to do.
They're a lot about gospel music, and that's something that people never got a chance to really know about until Teresa got this book together. And I tell you, she has really done a job for gospel music.
There are moments that define, there are moments in your life that are pivotal. And I think that so often people don't take advantage of them or don't know how to. Teresa's not that person. She knows how to seize a moment. I have a great deal of respect for what Teresa has been able to accomplish.
When you're doing publications, you're writing, you're working on conventions, when executives go out and they become presidents, vice presidents, especially women, they're standing on a Dr. Teresa Hairston's shoulders. Broad, though fabulous, shoulders. She shouldn't be forgotten. And she should be in the history books and the work she did.
The passion for gospel in my heart began when I was really young, and I just discovered that this was the music that communicated to me most. Gospel speaks to you, and it speaks to you at a deeper level than just singing it out. It comes back to you. A lot of the hope that's in gospel, a lot of the joy, a lot of the freedom that I felt in that music, it was just, that was what was biggest in my mind. And I, could have done well in classical or something else, but that was really where I found, here's what I need.